On here today, we're celebrating the life and achievements of a scientific colossus who has, dedicated his life to the study and research into debilitating infectious diseases in Ghana and the continent of Africa as a whole. He was born in Kandiga, a small village in northeastern Ghana, and attended Notre Dame Senior High School in Navrongo and Presec, Legon. He was awarded BSc in Biochemistry in 1998 and an MPhil in Biochemistry in 2002 from the University of Ghana. Now, back in 2007, right, he graduated with a PhD in infectious diseases and microbiology from the School of Public Health at the University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, United States of America, with a thesis on severe malaria anemia. Following his doctoral studies, he spent 3 years at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, Maryland, USA, where he continued studying malaria. He returned to the University of Ghana in 2010 to establish his own research group. Yes, his research focuses on malaria parasites and infections it causes in children. He also led significant research into molecular diagnosis of infectious diseases in lower income settings here in Africa. In addition, he is significantly pushing for policy change in tackling hearing impairment here in Ghana. In 2013, he led a consortium from the University of Ghana in a proposal to set up a new African Center for Excellence to research infectious pathogens here in Africa. The consortium consisted of faculty from the Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology, BCMB, and the Noguchi Memorial Institute of Medical Research, with support from staff of the University of Ghana Computing System. In 2013 November, he became the founding director of the West African Center for Cell Biology and Infectious Pathogens. In 2015, he was awarded the Royal Society Africa Prize, recognitions innovative biology research scientists whose research also contributes to a significant capacity building in Africa. He is a visiting professor of immunology at the Oxford Brookes University in the UK in February 2019. I have more to tell you guys. He's currently the board chairman of the CK Tedam University of Technology and Applied Sciences, CTK Utah's governing council. Previously, he was the government appointee on the University for Development Studies Governing Council and also the network's chairman of the established West African Network of Infectious Diseases. He was awarded the University of Ghana's Distinguished Award for meritorious service in 2014 congregation. Ladies and gentlemen, he's a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences and also has been named the first Africa global editor of the Experimental Biology and Medicine Journal. During the COVID-19 global pandemic in 2020, he led a group of scientists at the University of Ghana from the WACCBIP and the Noguchi Memorial Institute of Medical Research to sequence SARS-CoV-2 virus isolates from Ghanaian patients. In 2021, he reported the importation of the UK strain of the virus in travelers arriving in Ghana from the African countries. He advocated the reimposition of a ban on large funerals and weddings to reduce COVID-19 case spike in early 2021. Professor Gordon A. Awandare is the founding director of the West African Center for Cell Biology and Infectious Pathogens, a professor at the Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology, University of Ghana, and our honored guest on the show today. That's a lot. Prof, how do you do it?
Well, just day by day, pushing.
How do you feel when you go places and people have to talk about you and the list is endless? I mean, the achievements are great, immense. Do you sometimes ask yourself, wait, did I do all that?
No, so I just tune it out. I don't listen to it.
You don't? Wait, so you didn't listen to all I said?
No, I was on my phone. I wasn't listening.
Wow. Prof is just trying to cool me off on that.
I'm kidding.
I know, right?
Yeah, I think it's about mobilizing people. All that I've achieved is through mobilizing people, and basically selling a vision that people believe in, and basically following the lead of the leader. So I lead by example, and I have colleagues who support and students who work hard, and then we put points on the board day after day.
Wow.
So that's what we do.
Before we get to talk about the beginning, the genesis of Professor Awandare's life, let me just veer off a little bit. You mentioned that you love music, right?
Yes, I do.
What kind of songs do you like?
Oh, same songs that YFM plays.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
So you're like a staunch listener of YFM?
Yes, I am. My family actually listens.
Your family
to YFM.
listens.
My wife loves YFM.
There should be that one song you really love. I don't want to ask if you can sing it, but what's that favorite song of yours now? Since you mentioned it's a YFM style music, what YFM?
One of my recent favorites is Freedom.
Freedom by Shatawale.
Yes. Because of the word freedom itself, which I love.
You love it.
And also it has a good rhythm. Yeah. So
can you sing it? If I put you on the spot,
I don't want to spoil your listeners' morning coffee with my horrible voice.
I like that.
One of the things I don't have is a good voice.
You don't have a good voice, but you definitely are good in a lot of things. I mean, before we get into all that, we are really inspired by your achievements already. I mean, we want to find out where you started from and that, but I'd like to use this opportunity to say a big thank you on behalf of Ghanaians. I mean, all of us here at GMABC, thanks to people like you, we're still alive. COVID-19 just came out of the blue. Nobody knew where it came from. It took the world by surprise, but dedicated people like you took it upon yourselves to ensure that all of us are safe. And so if we're alive today, we're sitting here to do this interview. I want to say a big thank you on behalf of the nation, the station, GMABC, the production team for Wiley the Boat Series. We are very, very grateful. Now, let's start from Kadinga. Did I get the name right? Kandiga.
Yeah.
All right. That's where you were born.
Yes.
Describe the setting when you were born. I mean, growing up in Kandiga.
Yeah. Well, so Kandiga is, it's relatively small village that is between Bolga and Navrongo. So when you're driving from Bolga to Navrongo, somewhere in the middle, there's a village to your right, and it's called Kandiga. And that's where both of my parents are from. And that's where my life began. So even though I was born at the Bolga hospital, at the time my parents lived in the village of Kandiga, but I was taken, my mother was taken to the hospital in Bolga where I was born. So technically I was born in Bolga.
You were born in Bolga.
But I lived in Kandiga at the time.
You were raised in Kandiga?
Yes. Well, not my whole upbringing, but the early days of my upbringing was in Kandiga. And I spent a lot of time with my grandmother in the village because as you can imagine, those days people had kids early. So my parents had me when they were still students. So
let's just pause and then continue their lives.
So they had to go back and forth to school, and so I spent a lot of time with my grandmother in the village. So it shaped a lot of my worldview and my experience because I really enjoyed what I had in the village, and I was very satisfied with what I had there, and that has really shaped a lot of my life. Yes.
What do you miss about your childhood growing up in Kandiga?
I think it's the freedom, freedom and no stress.
No stress, right?
No traffic.
No traffic, none of that stuff.
None of that stuff. You wake up in the morning and the sun is up, and it's just vast land, of farms and animals, and you can walk and pick fruits. And wash or not wash them and eat them.
And still be fine.
And sleep under the tree, just freedom.
Just freedom.
Simple life. It's a very simple life. There's no electricity, so you cannot watch TV or anything like that. There was nothing like TV. So, so it's just very basic, simple life. And you don't know you're missing anything, so you're very.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You don't know you're missing a lot.
No, you don't know you're missing anything. So it's that satisfaction of being very much at ease with what you have and what you can do. Yeah. So that's what is.
You just described the family setting growing up. I mean, the fact that your mom and dad had you quite early, and they had to continue with their lives, and then you grew up with your grandparents and that. Within that setting, right? Within Kandiga, you growing up with your grandparents. I'm sure there were a few family members there as well. What critical role does family play in the larger community, and how did they impact your upbringing?
Yeah, family is really crucial in everything. A lot of our values, we build them from our immediate family experience. So, being in a family that is close, where people genuinely care for each other and make sacrifices for each other, that really shapes, your future. So for me, that is what defines my upbringing, is a lot of sacrifice. At the time, I didn't know how much my grandparents and my parents were sacrificing in order for us to be comfortable, or to feel comfortable. So it's that experience of being loved, even in the midst of, now if you look back, very modest.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, very modest circumstances, but they did their best to make sure that we're okay. I remember that my grandfather used to every day get one of the eggs from his fowls that he has, and they'll boil an egg for me, or fry an egg for me every day, and that was a privilege at the village.
Wow.
To have an egg
a day.
Yeah, to have an egg every day.
And Dad made it a point to do it every single day for you.
That was my grandfather.
That was your grandfather?
Yeah, my grandfather made it a point to do that. And then my grandmother would, try to make sure that I eat well, and there's always food for me and all that. These are things that you appreciate. And my grandmother was very protective of me, to the extent that now my parents thought that I was too spoiled by the old lady. So these things really shape your outlook on life, because just being simple, being simple and being content with what you have, that's really what my upbringing taught me.
Prof, have you always been this calm?
Oh yes,
I've spoken to a few people. I mean, I went to Legon myself.
Yeah.
Saw you a few times. Prof is always almost calm, like nothing is really happening. In the midst of pressure, nothing is really happening. In class, when people are making noise, you guys just calm down. Prof is like always cool. Have you always been like this?
Well, I'm mostly calm, but I have actually hot moments.
You have your
some
hot
of
moments,
my
right?
colleagues will tell you that I can get really hot. Yeah, because there are some things I'm passionate about, and when I talk about them, I get hot. So yes, mostly I'm calm because, as I said, I'm very comfortable with my life and my achievements. So there's no need to to be revved up about anything. I'm happy with whatever I've achieved and whatever I've done. So even when I was in the village, I was happy with that. So I'm always in the mode of being content. But at the same time, there are some things that I value, and those things I always fight for. I always fight for better access for people. I always fight for opportunities for people, and I fight for fairness. I fight for justice and for transparency, and just giving everybody a chance.
Making sure everybody has equal access to everything that is good in our society.
Yes.
I like that. Prof, let's go back to your early days in school. How were they like? You remember the first school you attended?
Yeah.
What kind of students were you? A lot of questions in one. What kind of students were you?
Well, so I think that the interesting thing is that one of the fallouts from being pampered by my grandmother was that I didn't like to go to school. So my parents tell me now that those days, my early days, I didn't like to go to school because I wanted to be home with my grandmother
and enjoy.
Exactly. So going to school was crying for me. I if I had to go to school, I would cry because I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to be at home with my grandmother and play with my friends, and so that's how it started. And then I started to enjoy school, and then I started to enjoy the whole knowledge acquisition experience, and that's what got me here. But in terms of schools I attended, I went to several schools actually. My primary education, I think I went to about four different schools because of various different circumstances. I started off in Boku, in a primary school in Boku. At the time, my father was doing his national service in Boku Secondary School.
Okay.
And so he took us to live there, and so they put me in a school in Boku. The school was called Akanda Preparatory, and actually the same school. Some of my friends that I know now
are from there.
We're also in school there. Professor Raymond Atobiga, who you may know.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he was in.
Prof is your old mates.
Yes, we were in the same school together, and his brother Frank. Yeah, we were in the same school. And so that's where I went first. Then after the national service, my father moved to Borga, where he was working with the meat marketing board. And so when we first came to Borga, they got me into preparatory school, which was one of the good schools in the Upper East region. Unfortunately, it was also perceived as a school for the privileged.
Yeah.
So when Chairman Rollins, took over, there was a point where they said that they were going to basically reorganize those schools and take out some of the children of the privileged and bring in
the less privileged ones. Yeah.
Exactly. And guess what? Unfortunately, I was one of those who was picked to leave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was like a ballot. They had a box and they had yes, no in the box.
Yeah.
And each child would pick. And if you pick no,
you'd have to go.
You have to leave.
How was that experience for you?
It was devastating.
You had to leave your friends.
I had to leave. I cried all the way home. I walked about probably 5 miles home crying.
Wait, let me understand this. Had they informed?
Class 1.
Had they informed the parents?
No.
Wow.
Well, the parents knew that this was coming because this was something that was a policy. So, and unfortunately, I was not even a privileged, child. I only was fortunate to be there. And unfortunately, the very people that they wanted to help get into the school, I was one of those people. But then I ended up being tossed out through the process. So I was devastated, So it's one of the things that remains, etched in my brain. That day when I picked no in class and I had to leave. Actually, I think we had just finished class 1. We were going to class 2.
Wow.
And I picked no. So
that's where you make the most of your friends in primary school, class 1.
Yeah.
So you really link up with the boys, you play with them, and then all of a sudden you have to move away. Yes. You mentioned you walked 5 miles.
I walked 5 miles to go home because my, nobody was coming to pick me up or anything because it was in the middle of the school day. This happened around maybe 11 in the morning. So nobody expected that. I would have closed. But
the experience definitely might have come with a certain level of disappointment. But now, when you look back, are you grateful for it? Do you think it's good it happened?
I think it's good in terms of strengthening my personality and enriching my life experience. But I don't know if it's if I would have come out better or worse going to school there. That we cannot tell. But it definitely is something that was. A significant event in my life in shaping, how my journey has been. Anyway, so after that, I bounced in a few primary schools, and then I ended up in a new school that I opened at the time, a Presbyterian primary school. Okay. And that's where I've basically finished my primary education. I became school prefect, and then
SP.
Yes, I became SP. And then I went to Notre Dame. Okay. After that, from P6, I went to Notre Dame to Form 1. Then, Notre Dame is actually where a lot of my growing up happened. So it really defined my, my training, my education, because I think it's during that period that you're really shaped in terms of your discipline, your moral principles and all those things. So I think I derived a lot from my experience in Notre Dame.
Was Notre Dame the phase where you developed your big interest in sciences?
Yes, I think that's where it began, because those times we used to do O levels.
Okay.
So you would do a bunch of general subjects up to Form 3.
Okay.
And then you have to basically specialize. You choose your track, whether you want to do science or business or
the arts, yeah.
And I felt that I was oriented towards science. I just felt like my orientation was to do science. And part of it was just that I didn't think I was capable of reading things and remembering them. And I felt like some of the arts courses you had to remember, like history, you have to remember dates and names of people and all that. I felt like science was more logical for me, so I didn't have to memorize stuff. I just had to think through stuff.
That makes sense.
And understand principles and apply them. So I found that my brain was more oriented for science than for arts and other things. I could have done business too. I also liked accounting.
You liked accounting as well?
Yeah, and economics. I like those type of things because they're also sort of based on principles that you can apply under different scenarios. So I like that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's where I started doing science.
The sciences came from.
Yes, and then to Presec, because that's the ultimate science.
Yeah.
The ultimate science college in Ghana.
That's the upper echelon.
Yes, exactly. So
that's where it continues. We're going to touch on a little bit more on your days at Presec. But I want to find out, when you found out you had a lot of interest in science, you were inclined towards the sciences. Did you get mentorship from anybody? Were you guided by anybody, or it was a decision you took by yourself?
Well, like I said, in secondary school, it was just my orientation that I just felt that was what I was comfortable learning. And my parents gave me the freedom to choose
whatever path you want to.
Exactly. So basically, I said that's what I wanted to do, and they said, "Fine, go there." So that's how I got there. But subsequently, when I got to the university, that's where mentorship came into the equation, because then I had to work with professors, and then a lot of them influenced how I developed. But in terms of the early years of the secondary education, it was just how I felt, what I felt comfortable studying. I liked mathematics a lot, and so just my mental orientation was for science and maths.
So you were seen as a shark in school?
Not so much. So I've always been seen as one of the good students, but I'm not.
You were not too special.
I'm not really super special, like always top in the class or something like that. I'm always among the people who
make the cuts. Yeah.
But I'm never that person who would be sweeping all the awards on speech and prize giving day. Yeah. No, so I say that I have average intelligence.
I like that. Between 91 and 93, you studied at Presec.
Yes.
Was that your first time stepping out of your region, coming all the way to Accra?
How did you know?
Obviously, I the first time I actually came to Accra to really stay was when I had the opportunity to study in Legon. Around that time I was old, but I'm trying to picture how young you were and moving all the way from where you were, Kandiga. Living around that side and coming all the way down here.
No, you're perfect.
You remember your first day here in Accra at Presec?
Yeah. So actually, I was fortunate because I had some relatives, my aunt and my uncle, who lived in Accra and who worked in government. So actually, when I came, I went to my aunt's house, Auntie Clotilda, who is one of my favorite people. So I lived with her and my cousins. So I stayed there and then went to Presec. Yeah, so I was fortunate that I had somewhere to land. It wasn't a hard landing, but it was my first time.
It was your first time?
Yeah, I never had any reason to come to Accra until I finished my O levels and I had to go to sixth form, and then I was ambitious enough that when we were selecting schools, my aunt said I should select Presec because I do science, and I selected Presec, and I was fortunate enough to be selected.
And I'm sure there was that little interest from the Presec you had been to before. You know, the Presby school you had been before?
Yes, I was. So I've always been in sort of church schools. So that also
inspired.
That also inspired the choice. But the main thing was science. I wanted science, and all I had was that Presec was the science. Science. The science venue. So you go there and test your mettle against the best.
Exactly.
So
did you have fun?
That's where I wanted to go. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. It took a lot of adjustment initially because obviously it's a different environment, and I didn't have friends there because you go to school for 5 years and you have made all these friends, and then you come to a new environment that there's nobody that you know. But took a few months to adjust and get used to new ways of doing things and make new friends, and then it was a very interesting experience, and I think very, very enriching. And now I've made a lot of lifelong friends from there as well.
You were SP back in JHS when you came to
primary.
In primary,
yeah.
Okay, so like the primary six SP. Usually those ones handle from primary 6 to 1.
Yeah.
And then the JHS prefects also handle that side, but they are like the main ones.
Yeah. So our time, our school didn't really have
the JHS side.
Exactly. So from class 6, you go and write common entrance and go to a secondary school, and that's the way it was. They had middle schools. But we didn't go through that track. We just went from class 6 to secondary school.
Did you do anything else apart from science in Presec? Were you involved in sports? Did you have extracurricular interest in anything else?
Yeah, well, I did more of that in Notre Dame.
In Notre Dame, okay.
In Notre Dame, I was part of the school basketball team.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I played basketball. I was very small, but I was good enough to be in the
handler,
school team.
Right?
Yes,
the one that was moving.
I was one of the guards. Yes.
Yeah.
So I was able to get into the school team, so I was quite decent. And then I was very much involved in the drama clubs, so I became very famous for acting plays, Shakespeare plays and Parks Race series and those type of things. And we used to go from school to school actually performing, and that's how I also made a lot of friends
through that
as an actor.
As an actor?
Yes.
Did you officially shoot
drama club?
Did you officially shoot any movie after?
No.
You didn't go for any auditions, none of that stuff?
No, it
was a side thing for you.
Yeah, all those things sort of died when I went to Presec because Presec, as I said, it took some adjusting, and then the intensity of the A levels, set in very quickly. So there wasn't a lot of time
for you to explore
for extracurricular stuff because it was 2 years. You have only 1 year really to play around, which we used to call sweet lower 6th. You call it sweet lower. That's when you can play around. When you get to upper 6th, the A level is staring you in the face, and there's no time to
to play.
Yeah, so I didn't get the chance to do a lot of those things in Presec. So I was more of a cheerleader, cheering the athletes and the footballers and things like that. Some of them were my friends, but I didn't really participate in anything significantly in Presec, but more in Notre Dame.
You were just yourself, just doing your thing and then leaving. You write your papers, pass and go. What is with, excuse me, let me just find out from you now that you're here, what's with Presec students and Legon? Can't you guys go far away? Because almost everyone, I mean, if you pick 10 Presec graduates, right? Yeah. 7 of them will go to Legon. They will just cross the road. They will just cross the road and then go to Legon.
I'm not sure your stats are correct.
They're correct,
a lot of them go to KNUST.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Because
all
of
the ones
science.
I know.
Well, maybe it's because of those you know. So, yeah, I agree that a lot of us go Legon, and sometimes we go there and they take us to BAM Library and things, and we feel about that. So it was just logical that you walk across. But then a huge percentage of us also went to KUST to do engineering and all those things. So I'm not sure your statistics is
fully correct. Now, so a few years later, obviously after senior high school, you became a freshman on the campus of the University of Ghana, just like you mentioned, doing BSc in biochemistry, and then much later you had an MPhil in the same field. How would you describe these notable transitions in your climbing up of your educational ladder?
Yes, so it's interesting. When I went to Presec, I actually went there to do medicine.
Wow.
Yeah, I went there to do medicine. So it's one of the there were only two choices. Either I go to do medicine, Legon, or go to KUST to do engineering. Because based on what I studied in the A level, those were the two options. So, it took a bit of more thinking through, and then I decided to go to Legon for many reasons, including having more friends there, and also doing medicine there. And at the time, doing medicine in Legon was also
it was prestigious.
Yes, so anyway, so I that's why I went to Legon. But I didn't get into medical school after all. so then I ended up doing biochemistry because at the time there you do 1 year of coursework, then based on your grade point, you shortlist people for interview into the medical school, and then I was shortlisted for interview, but after the interview I was not selected. So that was another big blow, another major turning point in my life. But personally, I didn't feel too let's say it didn't impact me as much as when I picked no in class 1 to leave.
It couldn't beat that record. Still.
No, that one cannot be beaten. But it was also a disappointment. More for feeling sorry that I disappointed my friends and family, but not for myself. I knew I would be fine because I really was confident that whatever I did, I would be able to do it well. So I wasn't worried personally, but I felt bad that I had disappointed people. But anyway, I went on, and the next best option was to do biochemistry. So that's how I got into biochemistry. And then I did the first degree, and at the end of the first degree, I was fortunate enough to be supervised for my project by the late Professor Ramadi. Yes. So it's a lot of our great professors in the university, and so because she was very much research inclined, she really influenced my orientation. At the time, I was thinking about. I finished my bachelor's. What kind of job can I get quickly to earn some money? I was tired of being a hustler. But working with her sort of, brought that other side of life about doing research and scientific inquiry and, asking questions that are relevant to our understanding of how our whole body system works and how diseases actually disrupt our system and how that can be fixed. So that thing, those kind of ideas and concepts started to become interesting for me because of my interactions with Professor Adi. And she was very hands-on. She would teach me how to do experiments, and we would have chats. She would take me in her car and we would drive and go and have lunch and have drinks. She was really very hands-on, so it's really started to generate some interest in doing research. So then I started to think about doing masters and continuing that way. And then there was an opportunity at the time at Noguchi for two students to be taken on a project for a master's degree. And so they interviewed some people, and I was also applied, and I was interviewed, and I was given one of the two, let's say, scholarships to do a master's.
You were not denied this time around.
No. Yeah, so I was given the opportunity to do a master's with Professor Akamori at the time. This was a WHO-funded project, and it was on malaria, and that's how I started working on malaria. So for my master's, I did a project together with a colleague who's now in UDS called Gideon Elegwe, and we did a project on malaria, and that was what I did for my master's. So that is where my research career basically started from. And then after the master's, I worked in Uguchi for a short while, helping with project as a research assistant. And then my department invited me back to be a lecturer. The Department of Biochemistry invited me. At the time, the professor who was teaching immunology was going on retirement, so they wanted somebody to replace him. So somehow they felt I was
the perfect person for the position.
Well, I'm not sure they thought I was perfect, but they thought at least I will do for now.
I mischief. Let's just keep him there for a while.
Yeah. Maybe this guy can fill the void. So they invited me to apply to become a lecturer. So at that time I applied with a master's degree. And I went to the interview. Those times when you applied to be a lecturer, you were interviewed by the vice chancellor.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a big thing. These days, they interview you just at the college level or so, and you may never get to meet the vice chancellor. Those times, even for me with the master's degree, not even a PhD, for me to be employed, I had to be interviewed by a panel chaired by the vice chancellor, by the University Appointments Board. So I remember all those experiences of going for the interview and being just, terrified that I was going to be chewed up.
That was sort of like the examination for you, right?
Yes, it's sort of like holding you accountable, because I had no idea what they were asking me about, so I was really just. But in the end, it was good, and I was employed as a lecturer in the department. Yeah, so I remember there's one of my colleagues called Reverend Boyon. He was the head of the department at the time, and he's the one who actually took that step to invite me to join the department. So I always remember that he's the one who brought me back to the department at the time. I think I made some protests. Some people didn't think I was cut out to be an academic, so, but,
he still did manage through.
He felt that I could do it, and that's how it started. And then I taught the department for about 8 months or so, and then I left to go and do my PhD in the U.S.
In the U.S.?
Yeah. So.
Your days in the U.S., I mean, you had, this was like another step for you.
Yeah.
Moving from your hometown down to postsec to study, moving on to Legon, becoming a lecturer in Legon for 8 months, and then United States of America.
Exactly.
That was your first time too, right? Obviously.
First time going to the US. I had traveled outside Ghana. When I was doing my master's, I went to Paris, I went to France for a few months. So I'd been outside, and I had already experienced the cold, and I had
already seen that Brucey life.
Yeah, I'd already seen that Brucey life for a few months, and eating sandwiches and all those things. So it wasn't completely new
experience for you.
Yes, but it's, going to the US is a different experience always. Yeah, so that was another huge transition, to move to the US
and then study.
Yeah. So
you had tasted our education system. Of course, you were hands-on. You were also a part of the people. Let me use the word administering our education system. And then this is you in America, a different setting studying. How different were the two atmospheres when it comes to education?
I think I would say quite different at the time. Quite different. I think when I got to the US, the first thing I realized was that the educational system there is, very well structured, and that the training is very practical. And I thought that the good part of it was that I felt that I was well prepared for the training that I was receiving. So I also felt very good that I had solid training in Ghana. Because when in the US for the PhD, you do 1 year of coursework, which is what we now do at the University of Ghana. And during that 1 year of coursework, I felt very comfortable with what I was being taught. A lot of the concepts I already knew. And I felt very proud that I was coming from Ghana, and I was sitting in a class of people from all around the world. And I was really holding my own and doing very well and answering questions that people didn't know. So I felt very good about our educational system, that at least we teach the theory very well.
You advance on the theory.
Yes, so the principles and those things are quite solid. Yes. So the difference was the practical aspect. Because as soon as I got there, next day I was shown around the lab and I started working in the lab. You understand? So I'm attending classes and I'm working in the lab in between classes. So that practical component, was there straight away. The other thing is that they train you to be independent, so they really throw you into a deep end and you have to find your way. So you get there, they say, hey, here's your project, this is what we need you to do. You have to figure it out.
Just do it.
You have to figure it out.
Wow.
So you have to learn how to look for information, try things. When they don't work, you find ways to make them work.
And this was you having a lot of knowledge on research. I mean, your interest had grown due to your experience with the late Professor Rama Adi, your work here in Ghana. And so, in as much as it was a big task, it wasn't something super challenging.
No.
You were ready to rise to it and then,
Exactly.
apply what you knew and learn more.
Yes. Yes. So absolutely. So I think that was one of the most reassuring things, was that I felt that I was well prepared for the task ahead. The only thing is that I didn't have some of the techniques and skills, but once the facilities were there, I knew that I'll find my way and I'll learn how to do all those things. So I think it's a good thing about our educational system that we are quite of a high standard, which is that we need to provide the facilities so that we can be more practical in the training, so that our students can
all-round students, yes.
Yes, could be all-round, yes. And also have that problem-solving approach, which is happening. I think
we're growing.
Yes, in Legon, in my department now, we have a lot of facilities so students actually get to learn a lot of practical science before they leave the university. So we're growing. We're making that transition. But the whole idea of inculcating that attitude of solving problems and being competitive, because in the US everything is about winning.
Yep.
So you learn how to compete and to win, and you go in to win all the time. And that's one of the things I took away from my training in the US, is that you always go to win.
There's never a time where you have to come back from the war with anything less than you winning.
Exactly. That's the attitude. That's the attitude in the US.
It's either you win or you don't go.
Exactly. Win or go home, as they always say. So I always say that if you look at US sports, they don't play draw.
No. It's either you win or you don't win.
Yeah. If you play draw, you continue playing. You go to overtime.
Yeah.
And play again.
They do until somebody wins.
They believe in winning, and it's some mental toughness that it builds. That mental toughness.
It spreads across all their various sectors. I mean, their sports, politics, army, defense, anything.
Yes.
They make sure they win.
Yes.
It's a win for us all.
And it's a good attitude.
All these things are good. I mean, such a great atmosphere for one to survive. You got your final studies. I mean, final. I think it's right to say final. Studies from that side. Question is, why did you come to Ghana? Because you could have had a better opportunity, at work there. You would have been able to make a lot, not be a hustler no more, like you mentioned. What motivated you to come to Ghana? And do you remember the first day you got back?
Yeah. So That's an excellent question, and I think sometimes my wife asks me these questions sometimes, but I think now she's sort of she understands why I want to be here. But I think one of the things that I never did was I never felt that I was going to live in the U.S. forever. So throughout my stay in the U.S., I was always thinking about how do I go home and make it. So all my my training, my choices, my decisions were guided by survival back home.
Okay. Wasn't survival up there?
No, how to survive back home. Yes. So a lot of my decisions were based on that. So even the kind of skills I acquired, learning how to write grants and writing scientific papers and being competitive and being aggressive, all these things were things that I knew that I had to acquire in order to survive here. So I acquired these skills step by step in order to come here. So all along, my mentality was always that I'll come home. It was just a matter of when, So when I finished my PhD, I just started a family, and so I felt that I could spend a few years and learn a few more skills for the survival back home.
It was just
exactly
for whom?
Yes. So I worked for 3 years with the U.S. Army Research Institute called Walter Reed, which was an amazing experience working for their vaccine development division. And so that again gave me very valuable experiences, working with the military and, the discipline and, the drive and the determination and they never say die and that kind of...
You have to go through camp with them?
No. Fortunately, you don't. With the office. So you have civilian employees and then you have the military.
But you could have if you wanted to.
Well, no, it's not like that. You can just choose to go.
Well, I mean, since I'm here, because the usual Ghana setting, there are people who I stand to be corrected. There are people who would get the opportunity to work with the army, maybe in the civilian department, and still come out and parade themselves as if they are part of the army. You didn't do none of that, right?
No, I didn't pose as a military man at all. I was a scientist working with the military. So in my office, my office mate was a military man. Wow. Every day I was wearing uniform, but I was wearing my jeans and t-shirt or jacket or whatever, and sitting next to him. But it breeds a certain level of discipline and work culture, work ethic. That seriousness of always doing things properly. Because they don't play. They don't mess around. In the U.S. military, everything is to precision.
And I'm sure from people, people who were outside, the ones that would come in as visitors, wouldn't even see the difference between you and them. Because the discipline level is the same.
Uniform. So once we're in the building,
we're all the same. So
even the military, they don't, they even forget that they are wearing military uniforms. We all interact the same way. We work in the lab next to each other. So it was an amazing experience and a very good opportunity for me. And so then to the next question is, so why do you leave this amazing job and then pack your things and come home? And that's where so two things. One is that when I was leaving, my colleagues basically told me that they were counting on me to come back. My colleagues in the department.
Because they knew how life was good there. They knew you could persuade to stay.
So I had one of my senior colleagues called Dr. Yadifie Osei, who's like our aunt. We call her Auntie Ya in the department. She's now retired, but she still comes to visit us. She's an amazing woman. She was the head of the department at the time I was leaving. So in the university, you could apply for leave without pay, which basically gives you more leeway to go and not come back and do whatever you have to do. Or you can apply for leave with pay, which then commits you to come back. Commits you to come back. So I had applied for leave without pay because I didn't want to be
called back, pressure.
I didn't want to have the pressure of having to come back. But my head of department said, no, we want you to come back, and we are counting on you to come back. So we want to give you leave with pay, which would make you
come back.
To make you feel obligated to come back. And that worked, because one of the things I always felt was that my colleagues were counting on me to come back, because they knew that I was going to acquire some skills that would come and help the department. So they were counting on me to come back. And that was always at the back of my mind, that I had to go back, despite the good life, despite that my family was now being established and they were well settled, and basically disrupting their life and bringing them to Ghana to start all over was a huge risk. Despite all that, I felt obliged
to come back.
I felt that I owed it to my colleagues to come back. Number two was that, in spite of working in a top laboratory environment, one of the top U.S. agencies, I always felt like if I don't come to work, nobody would worry. Like they can just replace me. Life will go on. Because so sometimes I feel like these people don't need me here. I'm needed more somewhere else. So that always was pinching at me, that when you step out from here, they will look for another scientist to come and do this job, and they'll get one. But your department is there. There are young people in your department.
Counting on you.
They're counting on you. I know that if I go there, I can make a difference on people's lives. I know that I can inspire people to do greater things. So I felt like I was being underutilized. Or
the challenge wasn't enough up there.
Like I wasn't impacting people's lives directly enough. I'm part of a big military operation doing vaccine development, but I was not the key player in any way. If I left, they'll find somebody to replace me. You understand? And I always felt that I was not serving humanity to the best of my ability. So I felt like I had to go back and try it at least. Try to make it back in Ghana. And try to make a difference and see what happens. I always knew that there was an option to go back if it didn't work.
If it didn't work, yeah.
Yeah. So, I had to convince my wife, who has been so extraordinarily supportive, convince my wife that,
let's go back.
Let's go and try it.
I'm sure she didn't say yes outright.
I think she supported me, but she was also concerned. She was anxious about the unpredictability
life out here.
Yeah, because she didn't grow up here. She grew up in the U.S., so it's a new experience for her, and just so many uncertainties about how things would work for her as well, for her career and all that. So it was a big sacrifice for her to agree to basically take this adventure. but she realized that it was something that was important to me, and we had to do it.
Prof, you had already served Ghana. You had already been a lecturer out here. You worked in your departments. This was a young guy who had gotten the opportunity to study outside, had job opportunity there. You were definitely earning a good salary. Wasn't that a factor? You didn't care when you decided to come back? Because obviously, I stand to be corrected still, but I know whatever it is that you were earning out there was way bigger.
Oh yes, I mean it was one of the biggest concerns about the salary, because I knew how much lectures were earning at the time. I think actually by the time I was coming back, things were a little better than when I was leaving. When I was leaving, I remember our salaries used to be something like 300. It will be about 300 Ghana cedis now. And then after taxes, you take something like 1 or something like the equivalent of basically at the time. If you convert it, those times it was 1 point something million, something like that. But it's equivalent to just a few hundred cedis now. So, that was very in my mind. In dollar terms, that was nothing. And I was coming home with a family that had, basically been living in the U.S. and they had a certain...
They had a standard of living. Yes, yes. That was standard for them.
That was standard, So it was something that worried me. But again, I was just so determined that I wanted to make a difference, and that I was sure that I had the skills to succeed, that I was willing to just take the chance, take the action. Yeah, so that's what really drove it. And I'm ever grateful to my wife for following me through this crazy decision. A lot of my friends were shaking their heads like, are you crazy? Are you really doing this? Are you leaving the job in the U.S. military and going back to the University of Ghana to do what? so anyway, we made a move eventually in 2010 and came back. And I started to organize. So
wow, this really inspired, man. I mean, I'm just looking at all the opportunities he would have had. And then he just decided, I'm going to come back. And he made it work. Because today we're sitting here with you because you made a very tough decision. You came back and you didn't let the toughness of the decision impact your life. You actually impacted the toughness of the decision. So we're here celebrating all that. You mentioned family. Let's talk about family. Can I presume, right? Or can I assume, sorry,
yes.
That you spend more time behind the microscope than you do with family? Is it a good assumption?
Well, that's true. And where a microscope here is meaning doing science in general.
Yes, in general.
Because this is, I hardly look in the microscope myself. I'm more a CEO than a
just
scientist.
Sit back and then...
I'm more a CEO than a scientist because I sit down and I worry about how to raise money to pay my staff and to keep the labs running. So I don't have time to go and do the microscope thing myself. But yes, it takes a lot of my time. 24 hours. Basically, I work 24 hours. Every time the work is on my mind. So, I go to work, I come home, I spend a little time with the family, they go to bed, and I continue to work. So it's always on my mind. So yes, I think that 3/4 of my time and my mental space is taken by work. So
the sciences.
Yeah. So my family is really at a disadvantage. They're really having to sacrifice a lot.
But you do make time for them once in a while, right? You guys do fun stuff.
I try. So I have a wife and 3 kids.
Beautiful.
Yes. A few weeks ago, so I saw a profile that somebody wrote of me that was circulating on social media where under wife and kids they said something like, we are aware that he's married but we don't have, due to his personal nature, we don't want to disclose. Something like that. It was quite weird, and some of my friends were teasing me that, how many wives do you have that you don't want to disclose? And do you have some unaccounted? So it was kind of weird, but I don't even know who wrote that profile, but I was making the rounds on social media. But yes, I have a wife who's called Masa.
Okay.
And I have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. Marie, Gabrielle, and Jeremy. Very, very fantastic family. My wife is extraordinary. She has sacrificed so much for me to be doing what I'm doing, because basically, one of us had to give up our dreams. So she, up to this point, has put her dreams on hold so that I can do what I want to do, because she should have been doing much better in the U.S. than being here. But she's here because of me, and to keep our family together and to keep the kids happy and well catered for. So I owe it all to her. And my kids are amazing. I like spending time with them. As much as I can. The weekends I try to stay home these days. I try not to go to weddings or funerals as much as possible, unless it's absolutely crucial, so that I can just stay home. Even though I still work, but at least I'm sitting there and they can come and, beat my head or pour water on me or something just to be there for them. So I try to do that. And then go out with my wife, every now and then if I can. And
I mean, maybe now that COVID is up, you won't go out as much as you used to.
Yeah, we don't. These days we don't go out much. Only once in a while we do some, small outings,
small settings.
Yes, but before we used to try to go out, maybe every Friday or every other Friday just to be together. Yeah.
Do they understand the critical nature of your duties? Your kids in particular, do they know how critical your position is here in Ghana? Are they aware?
No, I don't think so. I think they sort of have an idea, but they're not bothered about it. They don't really. Sometimes they think like, this guy, who do you think you are? You're so busy and. So yeah, I think they have an idea, but they don't really know how crazy my life is. Yeah, they don't know all the things, all the dimensions that I have to deal with. So which is good. I don't want them to.
Just want to keep them on the side, so they don't worry about your stress.
Worried about my stress. Yeah, so I try to keep my stress.
But is any of them picking after you, career-wise, interest in science?
Yeah, we'll find out. So my first born, my first girl, she's now in Form 3, so she's about to choose her subjects like we do. So she's in GIS, so they have the O-level system, so she'll have to choose her subject
first, and then.
So now we're thinking through some of those things, and I'm talking to her, but I'm just asking her to choose what she enjoys doing. So I'm not going to ask her to do science. I said, look, choose the subjects that you enjoy doing. That's all that matters. Choose those you enjoy. Don't worry about.
Don't worry your head over.
No. Do what you like. Do what you like.
But if you see, you know them. You are the dad. Yeah. You know their abilities. I mean, the ones that you've seen. Would you at any point step in to say, okay, this one is inclined towards this part, and so I would advise, because a lot of us might have had a few capabilities growing up, but then we didn't get that upper force to say, okay, this is what you're good at.
Yeah.
Try. Maybe it's not by force, but
yeah. So we try to talk through some of those things. For example, my second girl, Gabby, she's good with maths, and and she's also very good in art.
Okay.
She's very creative. The things she does, I always tell her that when I was in school, I was the worst in art. I couldn't even draw cockroaches in class. So I was worried, but she's just
tremendous.
Talented. Yeah. So the other day I was talking to her and I said, maybe you should do architecture, because you are good in maths, and then you
calculate dimensions and put the artistic bit in there.
Yeah. So we were talking about
all the money to come into your pocket.
Yeah. So you suggest these ideas to them, but ultimately I will let them
have the final.
I'll let them choose what they want to do. Yeah. So I'll guide them and give them such perspective, but they choose what they enjoy doing.
Prof, if you had to choose between science, right, and religion as a foundational principle upon which your family thrives, which one would it be?
Family.
Your family.
Family, I would say religion, but work, I would say science. So it's two different things.
So on the two sides.
Yeah, there are two, because family, the ingredients are different than work. So at work, it's about productivity and getting work done and generating knowledge. So you have to take a more scientific approach, in the sense that it has to be business, and decisions sometimes have to be cold. They have to be cold. I always say ruthless. As if you want to be effective as a leader, sometimes you need to be ruthless. You take some decisions because they have to be taken. You don't beat about the bush and try to postpone decisions and try to massage decisions. So decisions have to be taken. And when you realize that decision has to be taken, you have to take the decision. So I have that kind of approach for work. Whereas for family is more, it's much more accommodating and more based on faith and family values and things like that. So it's different worlds. different worlds. So I would say that I use both.
You use both. For the sake of people starting families, I mean, for somebody like myself, you just mentioned the family values. What are these family values? Ones that you'd want to share with all of us?
So family values, love, respect, and caring for one another. I think those are the values. But love and respect are the most important. If you love and respect everybody in your family, then it will guide all your decisions. And that also then breeds the trust and understanding. So I think those are the important values
for family. Right. Guys, so I'm here with Professor Awandare. I'm really enjoying the interview. You see, I told, who did I tell this? I think it was Professor Darius Osei, Dr. Darius Osei. I told Albert Okran as well.
Yeah.
It gets very bad when I am the one enjoying the interview, I zone out of the seats and then just stand back and I'm like, wow, I'm learning a lot. I have my jotter in my palm actually jotting down points, with all this. I trust the people out there are doing the same. Guys, if you're out there, you're watching us on Facebook, Y1079 FM, just drop a like or share the video so our friends can also watch. On Twitter, the hashtag is #YLeaderboardSeries. If you do have a question for Professor, feel free to send it through. We're about to dive a little bit more into parasitology, his research, his career, things that he's up to now, and all that. 020222207 to get you in that WhatsApp as well. Be a part of the conversation. It's still Leaderboard Series on Y107.9 FM. Prof, now your career has mostly been centered on scientific research, right? As you mentioned, in the academic community. What we want to know at this point is where exactly, or what it takes, or what has gone into sustaining your love and passion for your work. We know where it started from. We know where you've been to, the things that you've had to go through, the sacrifice that you've had to make. But what is that one thing that has kept or sustained your interest and the love for science up to date?
I think if one word, I would just say curiosity. Science is driven by curiosity. It's always amazing. You're trying to figure things out. Like we're in a pandemic, and this new virus. It's such a fascinating virus because it defies many of the conventional principles that we know about how viruses behave, and so it's ever challenging, and you're always trying to figure out how is it that this is happening, and why is the virus behaving this way, and why is it that so many people get it and they are asymptomatic, and then some people get it and they die. It's so strange, and that just drives the energy, so you want to figure out, you want to understand it some more. So, you want to sequence the virus and find out the variants, and you want to find out which variants are associated with severe disease, and, what's the history of these people? Is there something in their history that makes them more predisposed? I mean, there's so many questions, and that's what drives science. That's what motivates us to do what we do. Is just the curiosity of finding things out and understanding more, and, learning more about what is happening around us.
The prevalence of malaria in the parts of our country where you grew up is high. Would it be fair to say your research over the years, being mainly focused on malaria is as a result of this?
Partly. So, like I said, I started doing malaria because there was a master's opportunity
for me
to do a project. So that's what got me into doing malaria. But then I stayed there because, obviously, because malaria is such a big problem, and I felt that I could make a difference. And also my personal experience, like you said. Once I started learning about malaria, then I started to think back at some of the experiences I had as a child. And then I said, I'm sure these experiences I had were malaria episodes. These were times I had malaria. And so I remember days in the village where I would have very high fever, and my grandmother would be helpless. She doesn't have the means to take me anywhere, to take me to the hospital or whatever. So, all we had was some paracetamol, and they just give you paracetamol. They mash paracetamol in a teaspoon.
Put water in there.
And give it to you to drink. And then they put a mat under the tree, and you just lie down and get fresh air, and and then you tough it out, basically. So now I think back and I'm like, these were probably malaria episodes that I had. I had severe malaria sometimes, and I could have died because a lot of children die from severe malaria. I remember times when I would basically hallucinate. Like my grandmother would tell me that sometimes I'll be so sick that I'll be saying that the world is turning around, and then I'll basically go into some, in a different world, So it means I had, when I think back, then I'm imagining whether I had cerebral malaria and, those kind of things. So I became very curious about learning more about malaria because I think that I had a lot of malaria as a child. And I think that a lot of the painful sicknesses I had as a child that even now I can remember, and also some of the stories they told me, I think I used to get malaria a lot. And that continued actually up to the time I was in the university. I used to get malaria at least twice a year.
Wow.
So I was one of those who got malaria a lot. So, at that point I became very curious about understanding this disease and why it's it kills so many people, and also how it also behaves differently in different people, just like SARS-CoV-2 or the current COVID. It behaves differently in different people also. Because some children survive it, like I did. I survived it without any proper medical care. Even though I used to get malaria a lot, I survived it.
You survived it, yeah.
There were children who were in Accra with better facilities, but they didn't make it. Yeah. So all these were fascinating to me, and so that shaped my continued research into malaria and trying to understand all these mechanisms at the molecular level. Yeah.
You have been on the field for a while, fighting malaria. Realistically, how close are we as a country in our attempts to develop a vaccine for malaria with respect to, the efforts? I mean, all the ones that have been documented.
I would say we are not close.
Not close.
Unfortunately. Unfortunately, malaria is such a complex disease and has not received the level of attention that we've given to COVID now. COVID
line the rest.
Exactly. So malaria gets sustained attention, which is that we always have some attention, but not the kind of suffocating attention that you need in order to solve it. So COVID came, and basically everybody stopped what they were doing
on malaria or whatever.
Everybody, basically, almost all the scientists in the world stopped what they were doing and started to try to understand COVID. And vaccine manufacturing companies basically stopped trying to
shut down all their processes
and put all their energy towards finding vaccines for COVID. So we need that kind of crisis, let's say, response in order to solve malaria once and for all. But we have not got that because it doesn't affect the whole world like the way.
I was going to get to that.
The way COVID does. COVID basically disrupted everybody's life.
Malaria is like our scar as Africans.
Yes. So, and increasingly is becoming much more African based. So basically, yes, they give it some attention, but it's not the type of it's not the type of overwhelming attention that we got for this pandemic, because this pandemic affected everybody so much. So those are the problems. But we've made a lot of progress. I always tell people that when I was in the university, I used to get malaria at least
it's a frequent thing for
twice a year. Then I went to the US and came back with my family, and we are in the country for maybe 5 years, and none of us got malaria. And I said, oh, that's a big difference. It's not like we're taking any prophylaxis or anything like that. So definitely we've made a lot of progress, especially in the big cities. Malaria is almost
eradicated.
Yeah, it's almost not eradicated, but it's like very little.
It's been controlled.
Come again?
It's been controlled.
Yes, not necessarily because we've done something dramatic.
It's not a conscious effort.
Conscious effort across the country, yes. Because of bed nets and more access to effective drugs and ability to test. These rapid tests help because people can test quickly. Insecticide sprays and those things. All these things have helped. But we have also been helped by just developing, which is one of the fundamental problems. Because we've developed. Accra, basically, where is the water for the mosquitoes where are the gutters for mosquitoes to breathe now? Where's the grass? So we because of development, we are basically protecting ourselves from malaria just by developing.
Urbanization.
Everybody is driving an air-conditioned car, you sit in your car, you roll the glass and you're gone. You get to the house, all the windows are shut, or you have nets and,
That's true. That's true.
So basically, we are benefiting from the development that has come. There are not so many, ponds around because, every place is developed. We put up buildings and the roads are being done, and you have small puddles of water all over the place for mosquitoes to breed. So that development has helped. So all those things have contributed to the decline in malaria. In addition to all the control measures, of course, that I've mentioned, and support from global funding agencies have helped in those regards.
Prof, what has been the biggest, in your opinion, right? What has been the biggest challenge facing scientists in your effort to eradicate malaria here in Africa? I see a lot being done.
Yes.
Funding, right?
Funding is one. Just sustained funding. We do malaria work. We have to compete for funding to do the work we do. So every day I'm thinking where would we get our next funding from? You understand? In other places, there are top researchers, they give them a budget every year. Okay? In the US they have the NIH where Dr. Fauci and all these people they have a dedicated budget
for that.
in their national budget. Billions of dollars goes there. In fact, some of us get some of that budget. So if we don't have that kind of dedicated funding that scientists can draw on, then it's go stop research, and that is not sustainable for effective progress.
We're not able to follow through.
No. Look at us. We're sitting here waiting for vaccines that are coming in trickles. We had 500,000, 600,000, we had 50,000. When are we getting the next one? We don't know. We're waiting for a second dose. Some people have taken first dose, they're waiting for a second. What if it doesn't come on time? What if you miss the deadline or the timeline for taking the second dose? Because we are waiting for people to deliver us vaccines. Because we have not done what we were supposed to do, which is build our own capacity to make our own vaccines.
That's true.
We haven't done that. We've basically reneged on that responsibility. And now we're paying the price. We are lucky that this disease affects everybody, so it's in their interest to help us also control it here, otherwise to go back there. So we are lucky in that sense that they will support us to also fight the disease. Otherwise, we're on our own. Early in the pandemic, even getting testing reagents was a problem because everything we have to import, everything we have to bring from outside because there's no capacity to do anything here. We have an import culture for everything. We're not trying to make anything here because we don't want to invest in the facilities that will allow us to make our own things.
I had a conversation with Professor Elsie Kaufman a while ago, I think a month or two ago, and she shared the same sentiments. I mean, spoke about the fact that we should build capacity in producing things for ourselves here. But in the fight or in your quest in achieving this, would you say that the problem has been from the top alone or even on the private level? Why aren't private entities who are capable investing in this? Where do you think the disconnect is from?
That's an excellent question. I always have these debates with friends in the private sector because I'm sure you've heard it. Most people in the private sector, they enjoy bashing the universities and saying that, oh, these universities,
they're not doing nothing.
Yeah, you don't do anything. You produce graduates we can't use. They always put us down and just trash us, right? But you should always ask them, what have you done about it? Because, you see, like you mentioned, what is the private sector doing? You know, for us to do high quality science, it takes a lot of money. How many private sector entities are willing to support that type of money?
To fund?
No, they can't. Look, my center, WACCBIP, we need a budget of $3 million a year just to continue doing what we're doing. Not scale up.
Extraordinary. Just the regular.
What we're doing, so, which is just training people and doing some reasonable level of research. $3 million a year. Which private sector entity is willing to give us $1 million a year?
So it falls back on the government all the time.
Falls back on government all the time. But you see, government too haven't done what they're supposed to do. If you set up a system for people to support research, people will support. When COVID came,
there was a COVID sector fund, and people funded it.
Exactly. Why are we not setting up the research and innovation fund? Why are we taking 20 years to set up an research and innovation fund?
Has efforts been made?
Yes, there's been a bill in Parliament for 3 years.
Wow.
Parliamentarians today, let's call them and ask them, where's the bill? Why hasn't it been passed? So many other bills have passed that are not closely as important as that.
And Prof, sorry to cut you, but I believe there are scientists in the Parliament House as well.
Yes, there are scientists.
Wow.
So every time I give an interview, I talk about this. And I hope that journalists will take it up and go to Parliament and ask for that bill. Where's the bill?
They will. We will, actually.
Where's the bill? Because if you pass that bill, even if you put only $5 million in it, but then you open the door for private sector to donate into it. You understand? You open for international donors to donate into it. You open for philanthropists to donate into it. But you have to start. You have to put a system in place.
Somebody needs to set it going, and then people will see that the work is being done. They'll be obliged to actually put more in there.
Of course. You have to get it going. You know. Having said that, one of the good things government has done is to take advantage of the World Bank African Centers of Excellence, which is one of the facilities that we used to set up in our center. Let me explain. So this facility is basically a World Bank facility whereby the World Bank initiated a competitive funding scheme. So we had to submit proposals. But basically the deal was that if a university in any country was selected to be funded, that university will be given the money to set up the center. But that will be added to the government's debt. So basically, our center, for example, we were given $8 million to set up the center, and to get it going. So put up a building, buy equipment, train students, all that, right? But that $8 million was charged to the government of Ghana debt at the World Bank. So this is one of the most innovative ways that the World Bank has basically used to compel African governments to fund.
If you fund it, we'll fund it and then charge it to you.
We'll fund it, and they cannot refuse because you have a debt at the World Bank anyway. So they'll add it there, and with very concessionary rates in terms of the interest and the length of it's like 0.5% over 40 years or something like that. It's very, very mild. So it's a drop in the bucket in terms of how much they have to pay on it every year. So it's not a big deal, but it makes a big difference because you set up a center such as WACCBIP, you set up a center such as WEXEC in KNUST, ASCO, and other centers have been set up. There's one at University of Ghana called WACCI that was already in existence but got supported by this World Bank project to move to another level. So this initiative was an excellent one. Okay, so we applaud the Ghanaian government and other African governments who signed up to that, because they had to sign up, they had to agree to it. It's a no-brainer, but some of them
still say no.
Some of them will say no. But they signed up, so let's give them credit that they committed to accept that package and let the funding go to the university so that it gets added to the national debt, and we give them credit for that. But we're saying that let's go beyond that. Let's commit some.
We can do more.
Yes. The key thing is the continuity. If you give us money to set up a center, and now we need $3 million a year to keep the center going, and the $2 million is not coming, then it's basically like you've wasted all that money, because then
we shouldn't have started. Yeah,
exactly.
I get it.
So we need the continuity. You know, right now I have gray hair because I have to find $3 million every year.
Wow.
To keep the center going, right? But the government could have committed resources in the budget and said, okay, all these centers that we've set up, we're going to give you $2 million a year. You find the $1 million.
$1 million.
And we'll do that.
And then maybe private entities will be urged.
Private entities,
bring
them in.
All coming in already.
Give incentives to private sector.
Yes.
So that they support research. You know, they do a lot of social, corporate, what do you call it? Social responsibility.
Yeah, CSRs. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, put some incentives so that they direct some of these resources into research. You know, and COVID has given us a very good platform for that. If the government led an effort right now, they'll get a lot of support. You know, I heard the other day that the president set up a vaccine development committee, which is excellent. I hope that can be harnessed. You know, this is something that we can use as a vehicle to mobilize resources to actually make some fundamental change. But government has to lead.
They need to do more.
Government has to lead. Yeah.
You touched on WACCBIP. I want us to talk a little bit more about that briefly before we go to the final part of our talk today. In 2013, right, you led a consortium from the University of Ghana in proposal to set up a new African, Center for Excellence to research infectious, pathogens here in Africa. What was the underlying vision that led to this initiative, and what were the institutions that made up this consortium back then?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I've just given you the background to how that opportunity came about.
Yeah.
But the vision for it was something that we had already been thinking about. So myself and colleagues at the Department of Biochemistry and some colleagues at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, we're already thinking about how to basically improve the research space and build capacity and train people. You know, most of us had trained outside, right? Most of us trained outside. And then we came back and, there was so little resources for us to do what we know how to do. And we realized that we had to do something about it. We had to do something fundamental about it. So we already started dreaming about these type of things. So in our own small ways, we started writing grants and getting, grants here and there to start doing our own research. But then this World Bank opportunity gave us the chance to think bigger and to think about transformational change. And that's how the concept of having WACCBIP came about. It was based on conversations we were already having, but we then channeled these into a big vision that could, mobilize the young people who have the talent to do science, and give them a platform to basically express themselves and develop their talent. And that's what WACCBIP is about. WACCBIP is like a theater for young scientists to discover themselves and to grow to the next level. And so we've created an environment, both physical and mental. We've created an environment that favors the development of young people. So in terms of the physical, we've set up world-class facilities. We've spent the money that we got very efficiently to install world-class facilities for research. And then in terms of the mental environment, some of the values that I talked about, being competitive, being disciplined, having a good work ethic, always striving to be the best and to win, those type of things. Having the confidence, giving young people confidence that you can do whatever your friends in Cambridge and Oxford are, you can do it here. If we give you the facilities, you should be able to do the same thing here. So that kind of mindset, is what we created at WACCBIP, is to empower people and give them the space to operate. And that's what we've done. And in 6 years or so, we've trained, or at least we've given opportunity to 250 African scientists to do masters, PhD, or postdoctoral fellowships, from across the continent. And that's remarkable. That's probably one of the biggest capacity building programs in West Africa at the moment in terms of biomedical science. So, this is something that we have achieved because of unity of purpose, of people buying into the vision and believing in the African scientists, believing in our ability, and trusting in our talent and our skills to be able to compete at the high level. And that's what has brought us so far. So we've made a lot of progress and made WACCBIP into a force globally within a short period of time because of that driving vision and the way the young people have embraced it and identified themselves with it.
Kudos, you've done a great job. I mean, the thing about this interview is, right, a lot of the things you've mentioned are challenging, but then you always rise to the challenge. Like, you find ways around it. The ones that you haven't been able to do, you have good hope and ensuring that they get, the right, efforts in solving them as well. Still on WACCBIP, right, the center has extended or expanded to study malaria, HIV, tuberculosis, and even Buruli ulcer. What are some of the notable strides it has made in its research into these diseases in particular, and how are they being implemented now by the health sector to either reduce or eradicate them totally?
Yeah, so there are many, but I'll just mention a few. For example, the first locally transmitted dengue case was identified by one of our PhD students a few years ago. And that basically brought to the fore that we have dengue here, and surveillance for it has to be ongoing. In terms of malaria research, students and fellows at our center have characterized several possible vaccine candidates, which have shown, a lot of promise in terms of vaccine development. And these are all, let's say, seeds that can be harnessed for development. If we had the necessary support for developing vaccines and things like that, this type of targets that we found, they would form the foundation for vaccine development. We have a lot of work going on about antimicrobial drug resistance. One of our PhD students found highly resistant bacteria in hospital environments. Okay, and these are research findings that have significant impact on our health delivery in the country. So then you mentioned about the hearing impairment, for example. Hearing impairment is one of the neglected diseases.
It's almost as if nobody touches on it.
Exactly. But it causes a lot of, let's say, loss of quality of life in a lot of people. So one of our PhD students has done, some gallant work and identified some genetic markers or genetic, let's say, signatures that can predict that somebody would have
hearing impairment.
So these are things that you can incorporate into the screening of newborns, so that you can identify people early and then give them the necessary supportive care. Now there are supportive systems that you can help them develop some capability. If you identify it early, you can mitigate some of the hearing loss, by putting in place all these interventions.
All these research were done, successfully done by WACCBIP.
Many more. And
so if we get enough funding, and a lot of effort is put in by corporate Ghana and the government, the private sector, and that we should be good.
Yes, if we get sustained funding. Mm-hmm. Now we have funding. I think that I don't want to sound ungrateful, but we are one of the better funded research institutions
in the country.
On the continent.
On the continent, actually.
Over the last few years.
Okay.
The amount of money we have been able to attract, probably more than any single institution that is not being supported by a government or a particular philanthropist or funding agency. In terms of just competing for grants, we have probably
a good standing over the rest.
Yes, but what we worry about is sustainability. How do we sustain that? How do we raise $3 million a year for the next 20 years and allow all these young scientists to continue doing high-level research, on a consistent basis and developing all these findings and taking them further? This is what we need. And then where is the biotech component? Where are the biotech companies that would now come and work with us and take the knowledge we've generated and turn it into a product? That's what we need. So we need incentives to promote biotech. In Ghana, we don't have biotech. One of my colleagues just started a biotech company called Yamachi. These are very few of such companies. So, we need more of such companies. We need investment into biotech. We need people choosing to invest their money into biotech, so that some of the knowledge that's being generated by scientists can be translated into product. And this is how we build a country. Because we should be thinking about the Ghana vaccine next time there's a pandemic, which we can sell to neighboring countries, and even beyond, right? But we're not thinking about all these things, So let's hope that the government, the president's call for vaccine development planning, let's hope that it's taken seriously and it's supported with the necessary resources to make a difference and to make progress. I always say that investing in science is sort of like oil exploration. So some of us who grew up during the Chairman Rawlings to President Rawlings era, all we were hearing about was GNPC exploring for oil. And some of us used to wonder what kind of exploration that we've been doing. We never found oil, right? So every year there's a lot of money going to GNPC doing exploration. But eventually they found the oil. If we stopped,
they wouldn't have found it.
You never find the oil. But you see, so it's like that's how science is. You have to invest and believe that it will happen. Because many countries have done it. Look at India. India, the vaccines we are using, they made them in India. Right? So the vaccines were developed somewhere, but the manufacturing itself happened in India. And they shipped it to us. These are countries that chose to invest in science on a consistent basis, and now they are reaping the rewards.
The benefits.
You cannot reap the rewards without the investment. So if we can invest billions and billions of dollars over decades in GNPC to hit oil, I bet you that if we invest the same into science, the oil that we would discover would be more than the ones we discovered in the ground.
Yes, of course, it involves human lives as well.
It would be worth more than the black oil that we've discovered. Yes,
that'd be the water of life, if you ask me. Prof, on COVID-19, right? At what point did your team get the clearest indication that it was going to wreak havoc on the world and change totally our way of life? At what point? The beginning, way before? Didn't you guys sense it?
Yeah. So this disease took everybody by surprise. I think for the whole of basically 2020, everything was a surprise. The disease was always exceeding our expectations, always doing more than we thought it could do. So we were just chasing the disease throughout the year until we found the vaccines, and then we started to turn things around. So now we have a little bit of a grasp of the disease. I think we're getting control of it now. If there's no dramatic event, such as a monster variant, maybe a monster variant that comes and is resistant to all the vaccines, then we have a new problem. But if we don't get that kind of dramatic event, then we are gradually going to get this disease under control. But basically, when the pandemic or when this outbreak started in China and then started spreading a little bit to Europe, and all of us were concerned, but we thought, just like MERS and the other SARS, it'll go away, it'll not be a big deal, it'll just be, it will be contained quickly. But then the thing kept growing and growing and growing, and then finally it hit our shores. Then you realize that, wow, this is not a joke. And the most really scary part of it was that when you saw the numbers, the way they escalated very quickly, then you see that this is not this virus is a beast. Anyway, so when the outbreak first hit, actually I was in Thailand. So even at that time, I wasn't even serious about wearing a mask because I still thought that this would be something that would not be a big deal. But when it actually hit us, then we started to sort of mobilize. So initially, my team, we were basically camped at the Gucci, helping them with the initial testing of samples. But with time, once enough people had been mobilized to do the testing, then we basically went back to our own research and then started to do work that will complement what Gucci is doing in terms of doing the sequencing and doing seroprevalence studies and other things to complement the testing that was going on. And so that's how it has evolved. We, as a Center of Excellence for Infectious Diseases, we felt that it was basically our responsibility. It was on us. We've been building capacity and training people all this time. This was now the real time for action. So we had to step up to the plate. So we had to basically mobilize ourselves and see how we can support the effort. And that's what we've been doing up to now. And enjoying the curiosity of it, but also appreciating the risk and limitations of what we do.
Now, during the early days of the pandemic, right, you led a group of scientists, as you mentioned, to at the Noguchi Memorial Institute, of course, with WACCBIP, to sequence SARS-CoV-2 from Ghanaian patients. First of all, what is the genome sequencing and how significant was this scientific feat in our fight against the virus? I mean, a lot of people heard a lot about it. People at my workplace, I mean, I listened to radio and heard a lot of people, throw the information about, misinform people. Now that you're here, just tell us what it was about, how different are things, and I mean, basically what the new discovery was about.
So basically, genome sequencing is literally reading our genetic information. Going in there and reading it. That's a complicated process to get there. But basically, that's what it is. You are reading the genetic code. So our DNA is a code. It's an arrangement of, let's say, alphabets that mean different things for different people. Genome sequencing is then the process by which you go and find out this information about the genetic sequence. And the genetic sequence is what basically dictates how any organism would look and behave. You understand? That's why you are tall and handsome and I'm not, and all that. So these are all from the genetic level, So for us as a country, when this pandemic struck and several countries started to sequence the virus, when you sequence the virus, it does two things. First is that it confirms that it is the virus that's causing the disease. Because what you've done is that you've isolated this particular DNA sequence, or RNA sequence in this case, from person A, person B, all the persons who show these symptoms, you are finding exactly the same thing in them, which confirms that that thing is what is causing the disease. So it helps you to put away conspiracy theories about 5G and all this nonsense, because you have shown that there's a causative organism, and you can purify that organism and identify it through sequencing in each of the persons that
you tested or you researched into.
Exactly. So that is crucial point number one. So it was important that we demonstrated that we were able to isolate this organism in the Ghanaian patients also. Number two is that we demonstrated that this could be done locally by local scientists using local machinery. That is crucial also, because at the time, only about 2 or so African countries were able to do that. At the time, we were able to do it, because it's not straightforward.
Yeah.
It's not straightforward. Genome sequencing has always existed, but when you have a new pathogen, there are a lot of tricks that go to getting it done. And up to now, there are some, and I have friends in other countries where they are still struggling to sequence the virus, but we were able to do it. So that was also significant in terms of national pride and our progress. And then number 3, of course, is the usefulness of that tool. At the time, I remember going on radio and talking about the fact that when the virus changes, we'll be able to tell, and we'll be able to track infections and all that. And people thought it was just literature I was talking. But then when we had new variants,
yes,
this is when sequencing becomes valuable, because the only way you can identify the variants is to sequence. The normal testing only tells you that the person has the virus, but it doesn't tell you which type of virus, which strain of virus. So you have to sequence it to tell which strain of virus.
It is.
And so we are now able to say that the UK strain has taken over infections in Ghana because we have the capacity to sequence.
Yeah.
And if any new variants come, we'll be able to detect them because of the capacity to sequence. So this is basically why it's important. It's a tool for identifying pathogens to that level of detail, of telling between different siblings, for example. Yeah.
Great. Now, beyond all that, we're at a point where there's a vaccine.
Yeah.
Ghana is part of the few countries around the world that have received the vaccines so far. I mean, we've had a lot of people get, vaccinated, and that critics are complaining. I mean, I think they're still complaining about the fact that it took a long time to develop these vaccines. Is there any justification as to this? Because
it took a short time.
Short time. Sorry, short time to develop a vaccine for this. There are other viruses that are still there. I mean, you mentioned malaria.
HIV is there.
HIV is there. I mean, all these King Kongs are there, and COVID-19 comes up. Less than 2 years.
1 year, we solve it.
Yes, it's killing people around the world, and this is worldwide.
Yeah.
At least malaria is outside. HIV is worldwide as well. But all these things were there, and it took such a short time for us to find a vaccine for COVID.
Yeah.
Is there any special justification as to why this was found, in as much as it was very new to the world?
Yeah.
And why isn't HIV and the rest still found?
Yeah. So I think it's an excellent question. I get it all the time. Places that I go, yes. And it's an excellent question. It means that we're really thinking, so that's good. But the answer is sort of in the question. The answer is that it is an extraordinary crisis that we're in. Like I talked about earlier on about malaria, why malaria we haven't made as much progress is that we haven't dropped everything we're doing and tried to solve malaria. What COVID got us to do was to drop everything we're doing and try to solve COVID. Our resources, our mental capacity, our scientific expertise, our prayers, everything we had as a human race was basically marshaled towards finding a solution to the pandemic. And you've never had that done for any disease. No, even HIV, you've never had it done that way. Because no disease has, except, the other
bubonic plague and the rest,
except those plagues of the past. In our lifetime, no disease has affected everybody so equally, whether you are rich or poor, or short or tall, whatever.
It affected the world stock exchange markets, everything, airline business, everything.
Look at airlines; they are decimated. Some of the most powerful airlines, they are struggling. everything was affected. And so people realized that if we don't find a solution to this, basically the human race was being threatened. So everybody put everything, in it. And that's one thing. Number two is that, or should I say, well, number two is that there was a lot of resources, a lot of, biotech companies, putting all their top quality science into this. There's also been a lot of advances. So we put all the expertise and all the technology from different fields. We put it all together and try to find the best solution. But the third thing is that one of the things that delays vaccine development is the clinical trials. When you do trials, you need to find a certain number of people, a large number of people. The phase 3 trials. You need, tens of thousands of people who are exposed to the disease in order to check whether the vaccine is working, because you have to have people who are exposed to the disease
first before.
Exactly. So that some of them you give them the vaccine, others you give them a placebo or a dummy like water or something, and then they're all exposed to the disease, and then you see how many of those who got the vaccine got sick, and how many of those who got the fake vaccine or dummy vaccine got sick also, and that will tell you whether the vaccine is making a difference. So in the past, or for other diseases that are not very common, it takes such a long time for you to get to that number. So imagine if you are testing people with HIV, it will take a long time for you to get the number of people who are exposed to HIV in order to achieve that sample size that you want. But here's a case where in the midst of a global pandemic, where especially in the countries where the vaccines were being developed, the USA, the UK, Germany, Brazil, all these places, there were so many people, and India and all that. There were so many people who were getting sick from the virus. So it meant that it was much easier to get that number of people exposed and achieve that scientific threshold that you need to be sure that the vaccine is working. So those are the things that came together to work in our favor. For us to get to where we are now. So maybe we should do the same for malaria. Let's say that 2022, after we've got COVID under control, let's the whole world declare that we're going to solve malaria in 2022.
Can we all do that? I think it has to get to the point where it starts affecting traveling.
I know, but I'm saying that once we've learned that if we all put our
efforts together, we can do it.
Why don't we put efforts together and solve malaria? And then the next year we'll solve HIV.
Prof, we are human beings too.
I know.
Until it really lashes us out, nobody really.
Even in Ghana, it's the same. I always tease the government officials that when there was Ebola, Noguchi was all over the place. Immediately after Ebola went away, nobody heard about Noguchi anymore. Some people never heard about Noguchi again until COVID hit again. And the same thing happened. When COVID is over, they'll forget about Noguchi, they'll forget about WACCBIP, and then they'll go back to their normal lives, and then, we'll wait for the next pandemic. So I agree with you that it's impossible to get this level of attention for any disease unless it's disrupted our lives.
We have two questions from our listeners and then we're done. First one is coming in from Frida Osei-Poku inside Stanbic Bank East Legon. She says, Prof, is it true someone can get vaccinated and still test positive for COVID after?
Yes.
It is?
Yes. So the vaccines... I think it's confusing. So let me explain a little bit.
Okay.
So first, think of it this way. The normal routes of entry of this virus are through your nostrils and your mouth. The way to protect against those entries are a little bit different from the way you protect against something in your blood. These vaccines, we take them into our blood. And we develop the ability to protect us from viruses that are in our blood, first of all. So primarily, what the vaccines are doing would be protecting us from the virus disseminating or spreading into our system when you are exposed to it. So that the way it affects so many organs, the vaccine will stop that, because it will not allow the virus to spread so much into you. But it can still get into your nostrils.
That means when you get vaccinated, it doesn't mean you can't get it. It won't get in.
It will have more difficulty making you sick.
Okay.
But it can still get in there and exist in there, in your upper respiratory tract. And, grow there, at a slower rate, but it will be there, and you can transmit it.
And so that
But you wouldn't get sick, because when it gets into your blood, the antibodies are there.
It's going to fight against it.
Yes.
And so the ideal advice is, even if you get vaccinated, still
keep your
respect the other protocols. Keep your mask on, wash your hands frequently.
You can still get it and spread it.
Okay.
So keep it on.
Okay, that's
but we are hoping that it will get to a point where we get to what we call herd immunity, which is that so many people have been vaccinated that the virus finds life difficult now. Because if you have protected enough people, then the virus basically will be running out of new targets or new homes. You understand? So eventually it will disappear, like what we have done for yellow fever and polio and all these things that are almost non-existent anymore, because we vaccinated enough people that the virus is running out of homes to live in. You understand? So when we get to that point, maybe we can start to drop our mask. You understand? But
until then.
Yeah, but that's a long way, yes. Given the rate at which we are getting vaccines, it's going to take a long way until we get to that point where 80% or 70% of us have been vaccinated.
Final one, messaging here from Fifi Aaron Christ Pantan says, does the vaccine affect the chances of women conceiving like it's being spread?
Does it affect the chance of women conceiving?
Yes. Having babies?
That's an interesting one. I am not aware of any specific study that has linked it to maybe infertility or misconception. I don't know. I haven't seen that. But it's possible that if you have severe disease, it can affect so many things. Because when you have severe disease, the virus is basically in several of your organs and messing up several of your body functions. And it can affect so many things. The efficiency of so many organs. So it's possible that when you have severe disease, it can have that effect. But if it's asymptomatic or mild, I doubt that it will have that effect.
Thank you so much, Prof. A lot has been said. At this point, I want to find out from you, right? What would you love to be remembered for?
The people that have given opportunities to. That's what motivates me, giving people opportunities, so that they succeed, and they say that, Prof, thank you, you gave me the opportunity to do a master's, to do a PhD. That's what I want to speak for. Yeah.
And as we wrap up, final words to young people out there, ones that are lost, can't find their feet in anything they want to do in life. Young researchers alike, people who are quite passionate about science and developing lives and improving our lives as human beings. A piece of advice to all of them:
keep moving. Keep moving. That's it. You cannot give up. You cannot feel helpless. The worst thing is to feel hopeless and helpless. If you feel hopeless and helpless, it'll feed on itself and it will kill you. So you have to always look for solutions, and keep moving. Just keep ticking and looking for solutions, and one will be presented.
Keep moving, keep looking for solutions, and one will definitely be that gold mine, definitely be that oil find for you. Thank you so much, Prof, for spending time with us on Wiley the Boss Streets. It's been an extended edition. We usually cut it before this point, but we had a lot to share. And so thank you so much. I'm truly inspired. And a lot of things I never knew I've learned today. I know the listeners out there have learned a lot as well. Thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedule. We'll find time and converse with you. I
was a DJ some time ago.
You were a DJ?
Yes. I was a DJ for a little while. Some of my friends remember. After my undergrad.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your DJ name?
One of my friends had a nightclub, and I was managing the nightclub and
DJing as well.
Yeah, DJing as well.
What was your DJ name?
DJ 1D.
Well, so you heard it for yourself. DJ 1D came through, saw and conquered. Yeah. Thank you so much. 58 past 11. I enjoy this, guys. we're back to business. I'm sorry if I couldn't read your questions. I'll definitely make it up to you next time. But Professor, I realize you're very vibrant on Twitter. In case people want to continue the conversation, people have questions for you. What's your handle?
Gordon_Awandare.
Okay, all right, sure. We'll share that as well on our page so you guys can get in touch with Prof.
Congratulations, you found the one station that plays Ghana's best urban music.
YFM.
Listen to YFM 107.9 Accra, 102.5 Kumasi, and 97.9 at Takoradi.